Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca and today we're going to talk about 3 questions to ask yourself when a plant dies. Plants die for a lot of reasons and sometimes it can feel kind of out of nowhere and sometimes it is out of nowhere. But these 3 questions are going to help you to walk through some problem solving to figure out possibly what happened and how you can prevent future plant deaths. If you've never seen me before, my name is Becca. I am a plant enthusiast, plant lover, plant educator, all of the planty things. I love coming around here every Tuesday and Thursday to chat with you about houseplants. We do informative videos like this one, and we also do plant tours and projects where you can see my collection and how I'm maintaining and taking care of all of these beautiful plants. The number one thing that I want you to ask yourself when a plant dies is, does it have a pest? And there's several ways you can go through your plants to check for pests. I have an entire video about houseplant pests, identifying them, eradicating them, all of these sorts of things. So I will link that in the cards and in the description box below. But if you are wondering if a plant has a pest, normally the first way to check is to look at the back of the leaves along the petiole. That is where the stem meets the leaf. A lot of pests just love to hang out there. I think it's like houseplant candy. Like it just must taste extra good. And also another place that pests like to chill out is in new growth. So if you see your new growth on your houseplants looking a little bit sketchy, it looks a little crunchy, it has maybe some spots or something like that, there's a good chance that there is something going on there, whether it be a pest or maybe like the conditions are not humid enough for the plant. But generally, if a plant does just randomly die and you don't know why, typically it's a pest. And some pests are very visible to the naked eye, like an aphid or a thrips. Some pests are very invisible to the naked eye, like a flat mite. You can see all of these pests much better if you invest in something like a mobile microscope. I will link a couple of them down below so that you can peruse and maybe do a little bit of shopping for that. But also, I don't have one of those. I have a macro lens, and I kind of just got a macro lens because I wanted to take pictures of my plants really close up. But then I realized that I can also see pests. So I've been able to see spider mites, and I've also been able to see thrips with that macro lens. I do believe that I saw flat mites with them, but flat mites are so tiny that I wasn't fully sure that that's what I was seeing, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So yeah, the first question would be, does the plant have a pest? And if the plant has already suffered and died, I would check every plant around it, every plant in that zone, because pests can travel through the leaves just by leaves touching each other. So unless you have a situation where none of your plant leaves ever touch each other, you will likely not have a ton of pests transferring. That is a big rule that I implemented in my plant collection a couple of years ago because I was just losing a lot of plants to spider mites, and the spider mites just, leaves touching each other, the spider mites just crawl right across. The second question I want you to ask yourself when a plant dies is, what are the conditions of the roots? This is a little bit of investigative work, so clear a space, get your plant tarp out and dump out the pot and investigate those roots as best you can. If the roots are dry, flat, kind of papery and falling away very easily, there's a good chance that you had root rot in the form of dry rot, which means that the plant was left to dry out for too long. And so the roots started to just die off. And then what happens with dry rot is if you water after the roots have done that, then they can't really absorb and then they'll just end up rotting. So that's a really common root issue, one that I deal with quite often, admittedly, because I kind of go a little bit too long between waterings sometimes. The opposite problem of that, where your roots are way too saturated and not having enough room to breathe, is root rot in the form of, I don't know what that would be called. I guess just mushy root rot. I don't know. It has a foul odor. It just smells like kind of swampy and the roots will feel very mushy. So if you're noticing that, number one, let's look at your watering routine. And number two, let's take an even better look at your soil mixture. So roots need air. So I know that this might seem counterintuitive that you would want air in your soil, But if there's no air, then there's no way for them to breathe and be oxygenated. And then basically your roots are just going to be drowning because there's no way for them to breathe. Am I talking in circles? I think I am a little bit. But anyway, that will tell you a lot about your watering if you look at the roots and they are perfectly fine. Maybe it was a pest situation. Or if you look at your roots and they are either dry and brittle, dry rot, or if they are mushy and swampy, root rot, swamp. And the last question that I want you to ask yourself when you notice that a plant has died, I want you to look around and see what are the general conditions of the area of that plant. I want you to notate, you don't need to write it down, but just notate in your head, what is the lighting like? How often have I been watering? And is there any like draft? Is there like a door nearby or a window that you keep open that maybe the plant is not liking a draft? I would say in the summertime or the warmer months, the draft isn't as big of a deal, but in the wintertime, it can definitely cause problems. So if you have plants near doors or if you have a plant near an air vent, that can oftentimes cause problems. So just look in the surrounding area of the plant and identify anything that could have possibly caused the downfall of your plant. And after you have taken note of that, look at the other plants in the area to see if they are looking similar. Maybe you can move them so that they don't fall victim to the same problem. But honestly, if it's not a pest, if it's not a root problem, it probably is an environmental factor like not getting enough light or the draft, like I said. There is so much to learn when a plant dies. I honestly have a hard time even feeling sad about it sometimes because I have learned a lesson almost every single time a plant has died. And it is sad to lose a plant, but at the same time, that plant has served a purpose, and that purpose is to further my houseplant knowledge and my care knowledge to do better by all of the other plants in my collection and the ones that will come after it. If you are just constantly losing plants over and over and over again and you don't know why, there is probably a more widespread issue like pests or lighting. And there's a lot of things that you can do to combat all of those situations. I really enjoy the Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew. That got rid of thrips for me really fast. And then as far as lighting goes, grow lights. If you don't have the windows, grow lights. And if you don't want grow lights, then it just means that you can't have as many plants. And I know that that might be hard to hear when we want to create really beautiful jungle oases in our homes, but honestly, a happy plant is much better than a dead plant. And if you have plants or spaces in your home that you really want to fill with plants, or you have a plant that you really want it, you're at the store and you're thinking, this is the plant for me, but I don't know if I have a space for it. There is a such thing as long-term flower arrangements. I've made a video before talking about some plants that I have that I know are just going to periodically die, and it's just due to me not having the conditions that that plant really loves. For example, I really love the Gypperia orbifolia, and it usually lasts like 6 months in my home before it kicks the bucket. Those types of situations, I fully know why it's not doing well, but I still like having the plant. So bottom line is, if you don't have a place where your plant is going to thrive, I wouldn't suggest putting a plant there that you really care about, because inevitably it's going to die. Do with that what you will and purchase your plants responsibly, and don't look at their deaths as you being a failure or you sucking at taking care of plants. I get a lot of messages from people that are saying that they don't think that they could ever take care of plants because they killed a plant 3 years ago. And when you have more information, you're able to learn and grow. And I think owning houseplants is one of the best ways to keep growing and learning as an adult and as a person as we move through life. I think there's a lot of things that we stop doing as we age, and I think learning is one of them. And houseplants are just a really great way for us to keep learning. So definitely use your houseplants as a lesson, as life lessons, as just general lessons, and try not to take plant deaths too hard, because it does suck when like an expensive plant dies, for example, but take it as a lesson. There's been a few plants in my collection that were quite expensive that did end up dying, but it felt worth it to me because it was a $50 lesson or a $75 lesson to be a little bit more diligent about checking for pests or being better at watering on a more regular schedule. You know, it's all a part of this grand scheme of learning and growing alongside our plants. So I hope that this video was helpful for you if you've recently lost a plant. Just a couple questions to ask yourself to reevaluate and figure out what could have gone wrong. If you have any questions that you'd like to add that you ask yourself, or things that you think about when a plant dies, I would love to hear it down in the comments down below. And if this was helpful for you, I would love even more if you gave it a like and subscribed to my channel if you haven't already. I would love to have you around here more often, and I will see you guys on Thursday for another plant chores video. Bye!